Okay, our next topic is mood disorders. And let's take a look at the full list of mood disorders in the DSM. First is unipolar depression, otherwise known as major depressive disorder. This is, and here we go again with this, defining these disorders by duration, how long do they last, and how severe are they. Because we all know depression is part of our lives at one point or another, and it comes in and out of our lives. Everybody takes some hard knocks, and depression can be adaptive. It's just when it becomes too deep, person needs some help. Okay, so unipolar depression defined by how long it lasts and how severe it is. And we'll look at 8 defining factors for it. Then there's dysthymia, and dysthymia is a less severe version of unipolar depression. So roughly the same symptoms, but not as severe. Then there's bipolar disorder, previously known as manic depression. This is a disorder in which you see a person fluctuate from the depths of emotion to the heights, from extreme not displeasure, but painful emotion up to euphoria on a cyclical basis. Okay, we'll also look at some factors there. Cyclothymia is a milder version of bipolar disorder. And what may be the best clip art on the entire, all my slideshows, there is seasonal affective disorder, which also has the best acronym, SAD or SAD. And that is certain things, not having enough light causes seasonal affective disorder. Now, let's take a closer look at unipolar depression. What symptoms do you see in individuals with this disorder? Well, not surprisingly, their mood is depressed. They feel bad. It's painful, emotionally painful. They also feel a loss of pleasure in the things that they normally do for pleasure. And this inability to experience pleasure is called anhedonia. So hedonists are people who seek pleasure or live for pleasure. Anhedonia is the inability to experience pleasure. So people who are depressed, there are certain things that they do, that they like to do, that make them, it's just enjoyable. Now all of a sudden they get depressed and they stop doing these things. Why? Because their reward pathway is depleted, and doing these things that usually bring pleasure, well, there's no communication in the reward pathway, so they don't feel pleasure in it anymore and they stop doing it. Okay, disturbance of appetite can be in either direction. People who are mildly depressed eat too much. Why? Because they need extra stimulus to get the reward pathway to work. So they eat too much. People who are severely depressed don't eat at all, because the blockade of activity in the reward pathway is such that it doesn't matter. Sleep disturbance, once again, it can be too much sleep. People who are depressed can sleep 16, 18 hours a day. Can also, that's if you're moderately depressed. People who are severely depressed don't sleep. So agitation becomes part of the depression. Also, the way someone walks or moves when they're depressed is slow. And the strange thing is, it can also be agitated too if somebody is very depressed. they start to panic, like they can't get out. Like depression is something that, you know, it doesn't feel good, but you get used to. It's like a suit that you don't really like, but it's not that uncomfortable. It can get severe enough that it's just unbearable, and then it becomes agitating. Okay, not surprisingly, there's people with clinical depression or unipolar depression don't have any energy, and they feel worthless and helpless and hopeless. So other people shouldn't like them or think that they're any good. They're hopeless. They're helpless in that I can't do this, whatever it is that they need to do. I can't do that. And they're hopeless, meaning they project their helplessness into the future. I won't be able to do this in the future either. And it even gets to the point where people can't perform cognitive operations that they normally do because they're so tired. All right. Now let's look on the other side. Bipolar disorder. Let's look at the manic phase. What symptoms do you see? Elevated mood. People who are, imagine depression is a depleted amount of activity in the reward pathway. Mania is a heightened amount of activity in the reward pathway. Similar to someone taking amphetamines or cocaine. Someone on cocaine and someone who's manic, just from the disorder that they have, they look similar. Okay, so first, elevated mood, but also irritable. Things that they can't focus, and distractions tend to irritate them. Inflated self-esteem. That's part of the euphoria. Euphoria is very much a part of mania. You feel great and you can do anything. This is not the same, this sleeplessness here is not the same as insomnia that's seen in unipolar depression. This is, they don't need to sleep. They feel really, really good. And they don't sleep. Flight of ideas means, have you ever talked to somebody who went off on tangents all the time? Well, people who are manic are very distractible. They'll start to talk to you about one thing, and the next thing you know, they've gone on to another topic. And then on to another topic, and you can't even remember what they started talking to you about. And this goes right along with what I just said. They're very distractible. They find it hard to filter out environmental stimuli. Hyperactive, always moving around. Fearless. They do things that are reckless, things that somebody in a more prudent mood wouldn't do. Like, imagine pulling out and passing a couple of cars or something on the road, or on a two-lane highway, promiscuity or shopping sprees. These are things that people do and they don't think about. I may not have any money or other consequences. Okay. This, and remember, dysthymia and cyclothymia are milder versions of those two. Now, differences, unipolar and bipolar. Okay, first, women are more likely to get unipolar disorder. Even in this day, gender roles being what they are, women are more likely to get depressed, to feel like they can't. And remember, learned helplessness, the social cognitive version of why people are depressed, because they can't do something. So a feeling of a lack of self-efficacy. Bipolar disorder, on the other hand, first of all, there's no gender difference, and there seems to be a strong genetic component to bipolar disorder. Studies have been done in which people who were depressed, or either had unipolar disorder or bipolar disorder, were studied. And the independent variable was how many people in their lives did they have as people who supported them, their support structure. And what they found was there was a relationship between the number of people in your support system and the likelihood of becoming severely depressed again. Compared with bipolar disorder, it didn't matter how many support people there were. These people, it's not controlled by how well you support it. It appears to be a genetic disorder. And think about it. We're all from Africa, right around where the equator is, where our pineal gland secretes melatonin, serotonin. Our bodies are used to 12 hours of light, 12 hours of dark. And we've spread out all over the globe. And this bipolar disorder seems to be in some way related to that. And we'll look at seasonal affective disorder in a minute. That's definitely related to that. Okay, so low self-esteem seems to be, unipolar seems to be more reactive or due to environmental causes. Okay, so seasonal affective disorder. During the summer, you're not going to see someone with seasonal affective disorder. It's all about how much light is getting to them. And the pineal gland appears to be affected. Remember, when the sun is coming in through the eyes, light is coming in through the eyes, it connects not only to the primary visual cortex in your occipital lobe, but other places as well. And one of them is the pineal gland. It gives the pineal gland cues to how much light there is. And when sunlight's coming in, serotonin is released by the pineal gland. When it's dark, melatonin is released. This gland is also used for timing of mating patterns as well. Let's say an animal, its mating season is in the spring. What will happen is, as the spring is coming, that means more and more light every day, and the brains of those animals will eventually cue the reproductive response based on the fact that things are getting more and more light. Now, how do you treat seasonal affective disorder? And one of the answers is light therapy, to give people fluorescent light. So people who live in Alaska or something where it's like, there are actually times when there's no light. I was in Alaska once and it was midsummer. The sun goes down like 11:30 at night. It's pretty amazing. And I remember the whole time I was up there thinking, like almost like this fear underneath, thinking, I better make sure I get out of here before winter. I was only on vacation, but anyway, just the idea of being someplace, and in Alaska, it can be, the average temperature in like the middle of Alaska is 50 below during the winter. And there's no light. Oh my God, our bodies are not made for that. So one of the things they do is they put these light panels in their house and they have to sit in front of them for a couple hours every day. And also antidepressants, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors are also effective. All right.